that we are going to be pursuing an election process this year, much more in line with the formal procedure that IEEE has on its books. And part of that, so several parts of that. One is we form a nominating committee in each group. Then we issue a formal call for nominations. That period for nominations must remain open for at least 30 days. After that, we will announce the slate. Then there is a formal petition process for additional names to be added to the slate if there is some kind of movement, groundswell movement, that somebody wants to get his or her name on the ballot. There's a process for that, followed by announcing the final slate and opening a voting windows, which will be electronic this year on vTools. That has to stay open for at least 2 weeks. And then finally, the votes are counted, the results are announced to the members and reported to IEEE. We hope to get through all of that. The goal is to get through all of that by the end of the year. And where we stand right now is we do have a nominating committee appointed for the Life member group. And we are very close to having a nominating committee appointed for the Consultants Network. And that means that we are about to get going. So for Life members in the Central Texas section, will soon receive a notification that nominations, call for nominations for the Life member officers in the Life member affinity group in Central Texas section. For the consultants, it means that IEEE members in the Central Texas section who have identified themselves as a consultant in their member profile will soon receive a call for nominations for the Consultants Network. If you are listening and you consider yourself a consultant and you don't know if you have identified as a consultant to IEEE, you probably have not. And if you want to send me an email and I will attempt to walk you through that process, you can still do it now. You don't have to do it only when you're renewing your membership. So please take the call for nominations seriously this year. Another part of tightening up the process is that any one person cannot serve for more than 6 years total in any one position, period, for any group. And the names you're looking at now are really pushing the limit on that. Some of us are not eligible. Many of us are not eligible for the positions that we're listed in. So we can't just roll this slate over. It's kind of been our practice for the past few years this year. Take the call for nominations seriously. Consider nominating yourself. Consider talking to one of your colleagues if you think he or she is capable and talking them into it and so forth. So that's enough on the elections, but it is coming up. Tonight we've got a good talk, so we can end this on a good note. Satellite imaging technology, and I really think, well, I shouldn't put words in Tom's mouth, but I think it's how we could all take advantage of what exists already with the help of a company called SkyFi. Tom is head of marketing for SkyFi. Prior to that, he was the head of growth marketing manager at, I can't read my own slide because I've got stuff on top of it, sorry, at Community Success Marketing. Has background in e-commerce and community management and graduated from Kansas University, or maybe it's the University of Kansas, with a degree in journalism. So he should be able to talk to us quite fluently. And with that, Tom, I will stop sharing and turn it over to you.
Thanks a lot. I'm going to share my screen now, and you guys let me know when you can see.
Okay.
Are you going to do some video also? Are you going to run some video?
I have a presentation to share, and then I was going to do a demo.
Okay, so I asked some of the people who in the audience, maybe turn off your video once Tom started. Okay?
Okay.
Would you like me to turn off my video personally?
No. All the other listeners to turn off so that you have more bandwidth.
Okay, thank you. And then also, how much time do I have?
1 hour or 45 minutes, 1 hour, then depends on how much question people ask. Then at the end, we will open for questions. Then please turn on your mic and video, then ask questions. So I'm not.
Okay, great. And please feel free to raise your hand or interrupt me. Just you can speak over me during this presentation if you have any questions on a specific slide that we're looking at. And I'm going to spend about 20 minutes or so on the presentation. I'll do about a 20-minute or so demo on the platform, and then we can save some time for questions as well. Okay, please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to enter presentation mode, so just give me 1 second. And can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, sounds great. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm very excited. I actually met Kai at an event at the University of Texas that was a space event where people were speaking about space. So I actually do not come from the space industry. I come, as was mentioned, from an e-commerce background and a journalism background. I've always been very interested in space, but I never thought that I was going to be someone who could be in the space industry because I'm bad at math. So now I was lucky enough to join a company called SkyFi, which is based out of Austin, Texas. We also have a large team of developers in Bulgaria and Eastern Europe, some people in Ukraine as well. And we are a team that is trying to build a platform to make it easier for people to access different types of data. Right now, we're primarily focused on geospatial data, which I'll get into in a second, but we're looking to expand into different types of technology and data. An example of where we're headed is we're looking to integrate data from the platform X, formerly known as Twitter. So we're looking to become a intelligence company that makes it easy for you to layer data on top of each other to figure out what's going on in the world. As I mentioned, I'm head of marketing at SkyFi. I run our social media networks. So we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, or now known as X, and then Instagram as well. And here you can see our website and our web app as well. So I'll be sharing an email after this over to make these links a lot easier to find. But again, thank you for having me here. So I'm going to jump into this presentation. Okay, so at SkyFi, as I mentioned, we are focusing on aggregating and collecting geospatial data into one platform. What we allow you to do on our platform is task a satellite for a future capture. So I'm going to get into kind of how the network works in general, but tasking satellites is a fairly new capability for the general public. The government has had access to this for many years. NASA has had some access. I know there's some NASA people on this call, so please don't fact check me. And then now the general public, since about 2010, has had access via very, very large contracts. So companies like Google, Microsoft, they've been able to task satellites. What tasking a satellite means is you're essentially directing a satellite over an area of interest anywhere in the Earth, and you're saying, I'd like to get an image tomorrow of that, or sometime in the upcoming month or upcoming year, etc. So it's looking into an area on Earth and capturing an image in the future. So our platform allows you to task satellites into the future. Once an image is captured, it goes into an archive. So this is pretty typical for any type of database where there's a set of real-time information. And then once that real-time information is expired or becomes old, it goes into an archive of data. So we also have an archive of geospatial data from a variety of providers. And that essentially gives you lens into historical images for trend analysis. So our platform goes as far back as 2018. A lot of the data that we have on our platform, it actually will go back as far as 2015. But we're constantly ingesting data into the platform. So bringing in new forms of data is expensive, and so it's something that we do fairly slow, but we do have a lot of access to historical data via our archive that's available to our users. We have also ingested open data. So open data is primarily available through NASA and ESA, European Space Agency. So taxpayers essentially are paying for these satellites to go into space. Primarily Sentinel-2 and Landsat are the ones that we're ingesting. And then we make that data available at an easier way to use it through our platform. Primarily, there's other platforms on the web right now that allow you to also access this open data. We like to say that we have a better user experience. But overall, this is free data. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to enter in your credit card information or anything to get this. You just have to create an account with us, which involves an email and a password. And then lastly, we have analytics as well, which I'll dig into. But we're starting to apply machine learning algorithms and computer vision and some AI onto the images to extract more information. So I'll get into that in some later slides. Next slide here. So the reason we exist and the problem that we're trying to solve, I'll give you a little bit about our founder story, and then I'll get into the problem. We are founded by a man named Bill Perkins, who is a hedge fund manager out of Houston. He also lives in Austin. He has a buttload of money, and he was looking to use satellite imagery to monitor fracking crews across the US. So he's trading LNG energy, and he's looking at fracking crews, trying to figure out what's going on. His main goal was to figure out production levels of fracking crews across the US so he could trade on that information. And he was primarily trying to find the information before it hit the market. So there's market reports that go out quarterly, and he's looking at trying to essentially predict what those reports are and how the market would react. So he was buying satellite imagery to do so. Now, to buy satellite imagery before SkyFi existed, the main way that you'd buy it is you'd go to a larger provider like Maxar or Planet. Those are the two biggest providers right now on the commercial level. And you would say, hey, I'd like to buy a large minimum from you. Typically, that minimum would be $1 million or more. And you'd have to front $1 million and get into a long contract. That there would be back and forth emails, and then you'd eventually sign some type of contract, and then you get your data. So it's this long legal process, and you need to have a bunch of money to do it. That was the problem that Bill was facing. And he said, there's got to be an easier way to do this. I'm going to create a platform that makes it a lot easier. So that's how SkyFi was created. It was off of Bill's frustration to try to acquire satellite imagery. He'll joke around and say he was running around with $1 million check. And if he told someone if he told one of his employees, I need you to buy me $1 million worth of, or give a satellite company $1 million today, or someone in your family is going to pass away, the person would not be able to get $1 million to someone fast enough. So he thought it was ridiculous that you can't get satellite imagery even with $1 million in your hand. So anyway, that was one of the reasons why SkyFi was created. So how we work and how we're able to essentially create this platform is we aggregate a bunch of partnerships. And so at the end of the day, our business model is we are resellers, and we're selling existing bandwidth on these satellites. We don't have any hardware. We're just a software company. So what we need from the providers is we connect to their APIs, and then we ingest their data into our platform. So the way that we're able to do this is by contracts with essentially through partnerships. So we have partnerships with some of the biggest satellite companies, including Planet. Albedo, I'm not sure if anyone has ever heard of that company, but they're a startup out of Austin that is putting up a very high resolution satellite. They're calling it a bus because it's a fairly large satellite into space. That'll be in 2025. Another company that I'm not seeing them on here for some reason, but another company that we sell to is, we provide data from is called Umbra, and they're also a satellite company out of Austin. So we do have partnerships with companies out of Austin. I'm now seeing my camera just went away. Can you guys still hear me all right?
Yes. I turned it off by mistake.
You're fine. You can keep it off if you want. I'm
Okay,
happy to
yeah.
just present this way. It's I'm fine with that. So
Yeah, okay.
we have two kind of, actually I'll pause real quick. Are there any questions? Okay, going to continue. So there's two types of partnerships that we create on our platform. We have the data partnerships, which this is how we get the geospatial data into our platform. And then we also have analytic partnerships. The analytics companies are really companies, they're small groups of people that have really honed in on some type of machine learning model, computer vision algorithm, or some type of AI, and they perform a uh, a set of analytic capabilities that allow you to extract information from the data. So a very, very simple form of that is object detection, which I'll get into on some slides coming up. But object detection involves training a machine on a group of pixels. The pixels could be cows, cars, bridges, buildings. Those are some examples, but essentially you're training a machine learning algorithm or model on a group of pixels, and then you're able to give that model 10,000 images, let's say, and it will count every car in the image, or every building in the image, or every cow in the image. And those are some examples of things that some of our customers are doing. One of my favorite examples is a company that we're working with has trained a machine learning model on what cow poop looks like from space. And then they're able to capture satellite images over large swaths of farms where cows are, and they're able to figure out which cows are sick based on the color of their poop. And so very interesting and kind of weird use case, but definitely shows the power of what you're able to do with some of these satellite images once you run it through either machine learning or computer vision or something like that. I'll move on to the next slide. So the analogy that I like to use when I'm at weddings or with friends and family, because it's kind of a technical industry, is that SkyFi is kind of similar to Netflix. Netflix doesn't own any movies, right? They are just the platform you go to watch the movies. So they communicate and integrate movies from Paramount, Fox, Warner Brothers, etc. But they're really just focused on making the user experience as easy as possible to watch the movies. That's very similar to what we're doing. So the Paramounts, the Warner Brothers, those are the satellite companies and the analytic companies. And we're the Netflix, where we're just making it as easy as possible to watch or purchase satellite imagery or analytics as possible. So we're really focused on the UX and customer feedback, while we let our partners focus on the hardware and the solutions that they're providing. So we like to say that we bring the world's information to your fingertips. We have a web and we have a mobile app. And then, as I mentioned, we also have an API. So the main way that people are acquiring imagery from us is through the web and mobile apps. But the larger companies that we're working with, some of the bigger hedge funds or the bigger agriculture companies, they need giant swaths of images almost daily, and they're integrating our API into their existing workflows. So as I mentioned, the platform and the user experience is really what we're focused on. Some of the highlights that we offer, my favorite one is no geographical restrictions. So we can take pictures over North Korea, China, South China Sea. A really popular question is, can you go Area 51? And we can do Area 51. It's really not, it's not special at all. There's nothing you can see that looks cool. But the way we're able to do this is different satellite companies do have restrictions. So I'll give you an example. Any of the Chinese providers that we work with, they say that you cannot capture imagery over China. But the US providers we work with say you can capture imagery over China. So by integrating a diverse group of providers, we're able to cover the whole world. Sometimes there's conflict zones. And conflict zones are mainly coming up for geopolitical reasons. So I'll give you an example. When Israel was attacked by Hamas, Israel pretty much shut down, and they created a law where you couldn't capture imagery. Now, some companies follow that law and some don't. So we typically try to follow US law. So if US sanctions a country or sanctions an air zone, we will not capture imagery over that area. So we're following US recommendations, but technically some of the companies we work with don't follow that and would still allow you to capture that. We're just trying to stay within US law because we're a US entity. So no geographical restrictions is one of my favorite things that comes up a lot. Another one that we're really focused on is transparent pricing, which I'll get into on the demo. But a big question is, how much does it cost? Because you're tasking a satellite, you're telling a satellite to go somewhere literally with your phone. And we sometimes joke around that we don't recommend tasking and driving, because you can literally task a satellite at a stoplight. It takes about 15 to 30 seconds to get a satellite to go take a picture for you. We have transparent pricing. Our pricing for tasking, the most expensive tasking is $750, and the cheapest tasking is $200. It's primarily based on resolution. We also allow you to kind of drag a box over an area on the platform, and the price changes. What's different about this is if you went to a company like Planet or Maxar, one of the giants in the industry, and you wanted to buy imagery directly from them, they would essentially ask you what you're doing with it. You'd go back and forth with sales, yada, yada, until you get a price. With us, you can just drag and drop your box, figure out how much your price is. It's very upfront. You only have to pay for what you need, so it's very straightforward. And that goes along with flexible usage. So we're a la carte purchasing. If you want one image one day, you can get one image one day. You don't need to come into a giant contract with us to get $1 million worth of imagery at once in order to talk to us. We're very flexible with the way that you're able to use us. As I mentioned, we also have an API, and then we have open data and analytics, which I'm going to dive into on the demo. Next slide here. Big question we're always asked, or the average citizen thinks about Google Earth or Google Maps when you say satellite imagery. How we're different from that is a couple things. One is the timeliness and the temporal resolution. We have images as early as yesterday in our archive, and then again, you can task images in the future. So we're pretty much up to date across the world. Of course, remote regions like deep in the Amazon, we're not as up to date, but we do have more flexible imaging than Google Earth on most of those locations. The other thing that is different about us is resolution. So Google Earth or Google Maps is what we mostly engage with as just everyday citizens. They are actually using aerial imagery over most of the metro areas. So if you're able to zoom in all the way on a Google Maps image and you can see let's say a car, that's actually an aerial image, excuse me. We also have aerial imagery. It's just more expensive. So a lot of people associate Google Maps with satellite because there's something called a satellite view, but that's actually misleading. The satellite view, a lot of the times, is aerial imagery. So we cannot compete on resolution, but we can compete on temporal resolution, which is timeliness of the image. One other thing I want to mention is we're trying to move away as a company from being known as a satellite company, because we now have balloon data, aerial imagery, so plane data, and we're soon ingesting drone data. So we're kind of trying to hit all spectrums of data. And in the future, we're going to have underwater and buoy data as well. So again, we're moving away from just being geospatial and getting into kind of an intelligence sector. Okay, big part of remote sensing and Earth observation, aka capturing images of Earth, is what we call tip and cue. Tip and cue is looking at free data as a way to start, and then moving into commercial data, and then moving into analytics. So I'll tell this story with Venice here. This image on the right here is a low-res image of Venice. You can get it for free, and the imagery is updated every 5 days. Now, there's clouds all over Earth. There's about 70% of Earth that's covered in clouds every day. So it's the likelihood that there's going to be clouds over the region that you're looking at is very high. But if there's not, this open data imagery is updated every 5 days. And so the part of the tip and cue that we're talking about is looking at open data imagery and looking for something that has changed over time. And I'll show a use case about this later. And then once you've identified what's changed over time, then you purchase an image, because purchasing an image obviously costs money and it's an investment. And so you want to use the open data to figure out where you should be looking. And then you want to use the commercial data, which is the higher resolution imagery, to go pinpoint what's changing. Once you pinpoint what you're looking at, we have a variety of analytics, which we'll also dig into in the demo, that allows you to extract information. So this one that we're looking at right here, that's red and white, This is called a NDWI, which is a water index analytic. Pretty much the red means that it's not water, and the white or blue, it's blue on the edges, but it's typically white here, means that there is water. So Venice is a really interesting one to look at for this water versus essentially building, because you can see all of these canals in here. Now, on a normal satellite image like this commercial one on the left, you wouldn't really be able to see exactly where the canals are. But when you start to extract more information and add different layers of information like this water index, you can see a lot more information, and it becomes very clear what you're looking at. Any questions? Okay, I'll move on. So now I want to get into some use cases for what we're doing. The primary markets that we serve are these markets here. I'll touch on the ones that I'm mostly focused on and the ones that I'll dive into, but construction is really interesting right now, monitoring change over time from the sky. They're using LiDAR and drone as an alternative to satellite imagery, so that's what we're competing against. But again, as I mentioned, we're going to be ingesting a drone, and then when LiDAR satellites come up in about 5 years or so, we'll also have that on the platform. So construction's a big one for us. Military is big. So military, the government has access to a lot of their own satellites, and they have bandwidth on some of the providers that we also use. When I say military, or when we're referring to military in this sense, I'm actually talking a lot about open source intelligence, which is the general public and civilians doing research on what's going on. So there's actually a really interesting use case that happened back when Ukraine was first invaded, but a company was looking at satellite imagery and then social media images, like images on social media in real time. And they were essentially able to predict that Russia was going to invade Ukraine way before it was announced on any like public forum by the news or anything like that. So there's a lot of people across the world that are starting to kind of play a role in military conflicts. And they're just everyday citizens sitting in their mom's basement, sitting at an office, wherever, and they're helping tell the story and paint the picture. And that especially came visible in the Ukraine war, as there's a lot of unorthodox tactics used to find different things. We're working with Space Force quite a bit. I know there's a group, there's a couple people in here that are associated with Space Force. Space Force is really interested in our platform. So less so on the data side, because they have access to all the data that they need, and they have access to a lot of satellites, but they're more interested in the usability of our platform, especially for some of the groups that are out of remote regions who have access to maybe a TAK unit or a computer or something like that. They're able to use our platform as an easy way to get imagery and understand what's going on. Disaster management we'll touch on here. Insurance is a big one. So after a hailstorm, right now insurance companies will send a person to your house to examine your roof, but with high enough resolution imagery, you could just snap a photo and you can actually see the difference in the photo. I'm going to dive into some specific use cases here. First, we'll start with finance. Finance is one of my favorite ones, and I'll jump into why here. I have a question though. Does anyone know what this is or where this is? Okay,
Austin,
I will.
Tesla.
Yeah.
Tesla, yeah.
Yes, this is the Tesla Gigafactory right outside of Austin. This is a use case that we dove into because we're really interested in what's going on at Tesla, and so are financial markets. There's other people that are interested in knowing what's going on at Tesla. Ford cares a lot. Toyota cares a lot. Some of the EV competitors, electrical vehicle competitors, they want to know what Tesla is doing. And so satellite imagery can be used in finance and as a competitive tool for some of these companies. I'll show you what we did here. So at SkyFi, we took this image of this area of interest. It's a little bit bigger. Maybe I can pull one up in a second, but we took this picture 3 to 5 times a week, and we ingested it directly into the cloud. So we didn't look at the images, we just brought it into the cloud. This is what those captures look like in our Google Drive. And we captured 3 to 5 times a week for 5 months. Now, after we captured those images, we identified parking lots, and we tried to figure out what is in each parking lot. There's a couple of different ways we did this. We popped up a drone. So we came into this neighborhood, we flew a drone over here, and we were able to tell what car was in each parking lot, where there's materials, a big thing we were interested in is where's the employee parking lot with return to work. Employee parking lots was interesting for us for predicting output. And essentially what we were able to do is we took all of the images, we took the parking lots, and we trained a machine learning model on how to count cars in here. So then we knew, okay, this is a Tesla Model X parking lot. This is a Cybertruck parking lot. This number 4 up here is an employee parking lot. Number 1 is an employee parking lot, etc. So once we were able to count cars in each parking lot and identify them, we could predict and measure really interesting trends. And so we're just doing this as an internal case study, and we ended up telling this story through a media company called Sherwood News. So a big group that I work with in the marketing sector of our company is the media, because we can see really cool things going on that no one else knows about. So I'll jump into some of those in a little bit later, but Sherwood told this story about Tesla's massive pileup. I'm going to, let's see if I can get out of this. Well, Tommy, can you see this now? Are you seeing a new screen? Or are you still seeing my presentation?
No, we're seeing creating stockpiles you can see from space.
Okay, can you see a graph right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So what we were able to do, and Sherwood News is the one who ended up breaking this story, because we were looking for a marketing arm. Let me get this on this. Okay, so the story that we pretty much were able to tell is that Tesla was removing cars from their parking lot, but they weren't selling them. And so this company helped us figure out what was happening based on that. The main number that we were looking at is this parking lot that was 17% full versus 97% full. And that was showing us that these parking lots were essentially filling up and Tesla wasn't selling the cars. I'm not doing this justice because I can't show every image over time because it's going to take way too long to explain. But this is the TLDR, the long story short on what we were able to do. We're counting capacity over time and then showing change over time on that capacity. And then what we learned and figured out quickly after that is that Tesla was actually storing cars in different parking lots in malls across the US. So this is an example of a mall in Missouri, in Chesterfield Mall outside of St. Louis, Missouri. And it's an image, the top image is in 2022, and the bottom image is in May of 2024. And so this parking lot right here that's outlined in 2022 was just hosting some like moving vehicles and no cars. And then in 2024, I wish I could remove this red, but these are all Tesla cars. So Tesla's essentially moving their inventory out of the production facility and into these mall parking lots across the US. Now, the story that's interesting there, really for finance, the finance community, is that they're not selling all the Teslas. But what we're really trying to do with this story is to help people understand what else you could look at, right? Tesla production facility is just one example. Think about any car facility across the US. Rental car facilities, Walmart parking lots is another one that people are interested in. So if you look at Walmart parking lots every Saturday of the month, you could, Saturday's their most busy day. They've disclosed that. You can actually help forecast their quarterly outputs just based on Saturdays. And so that's just an example of like some of the stuff that you can use with machine learning applied to geospatial data. That was the Tesla pileup story. I'm going to get into a new story. Can you guys see some of the markets we serve again?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This next story that I'm going to look at is it touches on environmental, mining, and government. Okay, so this one is looking at deforestation, illegal mining, fires, and governance gaps in the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rainforest is a really good use case for us to show because it's so remote and there's so many illegal activities going on, but the reason why they're not being stopped is because no one knows what's going on. It's such a remote location that people can just go out there and build whatever they want, And really, the government can't stop it because they would have to send in military, and that's extremely expensive. And most of the time, people just don't know what's going on. So, what you can do with SkyFi, and what we've seen some companies do, is you can monitor this over time. You can identify problem areas, and then you can go in there with very specific government targets. So, this is an example of change over time. You can watch, it starts at 1984 and goes all the way to 2020, 2022, actually. Let's see, 2023, excuse me. And what we were looking at in this, even though there's a ton of deforestation over on this left side of the image, we were primarily concerned about this illegal mine right here on the right side that's slowly building. And so we've outlined that illegal mine, and we've showed the change over time from afar. Again, this is free imagery that we're looking at. So this is a way for us to kind of pinpoint, spend resources to dig in a little deeper. Landsat imagery is currently not available on the platform, but it is being ingested. So this will be available fairly soon. It's 10-meter data. So for anyone out there who knows how resolution works for geospatial data and remote sensing, each pixel in this image represents 10 meters on the ground. We have imagery on SkyFi that goes from 10 meters, which is Landsat, which again isn't available yet, but will be soon, all the way down to 7.5 centimeters per pixel. I'll show some images of what that looks like shortly, but 7.5 centimeters per pixel, you can make out like how many people are sitting in a car. So you can see the car, and then you can see how many people. It's very high resolution imagery. It's similar to what you're familiar with on Google Maps. So we identified this illegal mine in the Amazon, and we watched it over time to see how it changed. Then when we decided that we wanted to monitor it closely, even more closely, we applied analytics to it. So this analytics is called land use classification map. And what it does is it takes the pixels in the image and it converts them to vectors. And what you're able to do with essentially turning it into an animation, which is a vector file, is you're able to actually quantify the change. And so we were able to see that there was 86% damage essentially over time in this region based on turning it into vectors and quantifying the imagery. Land use classification, this map is primarily used for people that are looking at deforestation, large urban development over time, typically between 1 and 5 years of change. So it wouldn't be something that you'd look at month to month. You need a lot more of a mass change. But this is a product that's available for purchase on our platform. So we looked at the Amazon, we saw that this region's changing quite a bit, and then we zoomed in. This is still a 10, excuse me, I might have misquoted. I actually believe that Landsat is 20 meters. This is a 10-meter image that we're looking at, which is Sentinel-2. It's another open data image. So this is an open data free image of this image, but it's of this area, but it's zoomed in even more so we can see the change over time. This is between 1 year change. We can see they're starting to build out right there. So there's some other areas. So then we zoomed in even more because we know that it's changing and we wanted to figure out what's going on. So we've just gone from 10 meters, which is this. This is 10 meters per pixel. This is 75 centimeters on the top per pixel. And this one on the bottom is 50 centimeters per pixel. So as you zoom in more and more, we can start to make out houses and different change like roads and different things that are changing over time in the image. So as you zoom in, you can see, excuse me, I don't know why this is super dark black. It must have not converted correctly. But the point of this slide is that we can get so close to what's going on where we can identify roads, buildings, etc. Okay, so then we took the 50 centimeter image, so the highest resolution image we have, and we applied what's called vegetation index, NDVI. NDVI takes a look at the vegetation versus the water. So in this image that's flashing, the red is the water and the green, it varies. So like, look at this region right here in the center. You can see that's not so green and it's super green in some areas. The super green areas are where the vegetation is higher, and the less like the more white areas is where the vegetation is lower. That can signal a couple things. It could signal regrowth. So maybe this is areas that have actually been already mined and now they're starting to grow again. It can also signal that they're currently cutting down trees in those regions. So this is another analytic capability that you can apply on top of an image. It costs $5 on SkyFi to apply this analytic capability to your image. And you can see a lot of interesting things in the image with that. Another thing that you can see with a $5 analytic capability is heat signatures. So in this image, sorry, I know it's flashing fairly quickly, but in the colorful image before it goes into the analysis, you can see all the smoke, but you don't really know what's going on. Well, this analytic capability allows us to identify heat signatures in the image, and then we can see where the actual fire is in near real time. So another way to track deforestation and what's going on in remote locations is this heat signature. So that is the mining example. Again, it also affects governance because you're able to point to things and say, here's what's going on, etc. And people can use that for advocacy. Now I want to jump into disaster management. Wildfires. Wildfires are huge right now, as we all know, with climate change impacting the world. They're in California quite often. They're in Canada. But the one that we're going to look at here is actually in Maui. So the role of satellite imagery in addressing wildfires is really a three-part role. Preventing it, what are we gonna do when there's an active wildfire, and then how do we respond to it? So looking at preventing it, we're gonna use this vegetation index. And right here, we're looking at the Maui wildfire before the wildfire. And what's interesting and what you can see, and I can go back and forth between the images if we need to, is the areas that are red are actually most susceptible to fires because they have the least amount of vegetation, meaning they have the least amount of water and things that would be able to soak up the fire. So when you actually look at this before image of Maui, and then you look at the after image of where it was damaged, it's actually very obvious where the fire, where it could have been prevented because we knew what was most susceptible to the fire. And so we can use normalized difference vegetation index, the NDVI, to look at biomass buildup and kind of look at the red regions and see where we have places in the world that are susceptible or maybe we should be cautious of for wildfires. During the wildfire, we can use open data, which is updated every 5 days, to see what type of disaster or what type of coverage it has created. So this is one that is updated 5 days. As I mentioned, you can see large swaths, and this is something that is kind of just used by people around the world to understand where the fire is damaging different areas. And really, I mean, we've had people come to us and ask if it's damaging their house. If their house is still there, you can use this imagery to get kind of a clue, even though it is fairly low resolution, so you wouldn't be able to see your house. Okay, I want to talk about a sensor that we have that's called synthetic aperture radar, which is SAR. As I mentioned, the company that we get SAR from is called Umbra, and they are out of Austin, Texas. So we have a great relationship with them because we're in Austin as well. What SAR is, it is a radar, similar to sonar, how sonar works, or X-rays. So what happens is a satellite beams out radar signals from the satellite, from the sky essentially, and the amount of time that, so those signals go and hit off Earth, and the amount of time that it takes to come back, down to the centimeter, the amount of centimeter resolution, it's able to create a picture. So it's essentially saying, okay, there's a building here, and we're able to tell that because that signal came back faster than when there isn't a building, etc. And so what SAR can be used for is a lot of different things, but the main things that we use it for is when there's clouds, smoke, or it's nighttime. Because since it's a radar signal, you actually don't need any type of lighting to see what's going on because you're not actually seeing it, you're seeing this radar signal. So this was used during the wildfire by response crews in Maui. This is all smoke here, and then when you apply this black and white that you're about to see, this is the damage that was being done in real time by synthetic that we're seeing with synthetic aperture radar. All these houses here are destroyed. We're about to see it in some more pictures, but it's very sad and devastating, but it's very safe and a useful tool for like fire teams, fire response teams, and emergency rescue crews. One other thing we can use during the active fire is this near infrared technology that I discussed on the mining one. So this is a different way to look at it, but these red dots here are where the fires are active. And when you see an image like this that's so smoky, sometimes it's really hard to figure out where the fire is actually active and where it's like just kind of died out. And so this is a tool that emergency response crews can use to essentially figure out what is going on the ground without having to be there from afar. Responsive. So after the fire is done, we want to figure out what happened as quickly as we can so we can figure out what we need to do, where we need to go, etc. This is a building detection model. It's trained on machine learning. We've essentially trained machines to understand what buildings look like, and then they can turn those buildings into vectors. So this before and after here, this is a before image. The optical image that you're seeing right here is before. Then you see the vectors, you see all the dots, and then the after, all of these dots are removed in this bottom region because the fire took out those buildings. So this is something that we would deliver to a rescue response team right after the fire or even during the fire. And they would say, okay, we need to go check on all these people because all of these areas were damaged. It's also a way, because we're using vector files, to quantify the change. So we can literally count how many buildings were there and how many buildings were destroyed, and we can report on that. Lastly, we're going to look at real-time imaging, which is really one of the most basic ones. This is what Google Earth looked like before the fire, and then this is after. It's obviously extremely devastating. But this is something that literally civilians and everyday people use after hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, anything that would damage a house, and you would want kind of like an overview of what's going on as soon as possible. They're taking pictures and they're saying, oh my gosh, that's my house. It didn't make it, it did make it, etc. It's a safe way for people to understand what's going on. Okay, now I'm going to jump into a demo. Before I get into the demo, I'm wondering if anyone has any questions.
When you say SAR technology, is it the same as a infrared technology?
No, it's not. And I kind of wish I would have provided more information about this. I can open some up really quickly just because we have the time.
Let me grab later. Yeah.
Let me grab this really quickly. I'm just going to go into a presentation and show you what that looks like. Bear with me. Thank you for the question. Okay, I think this is a good one. Okay, so we have different sensors on the platform. And sensors, for those of you that aren't familiar with sensors, they collect data in a variety of different ways. Self-driving cars, they have sensors, and they're looking at where people are on the ground. It might not be the typical thing that we see with our eyes, but you know they're essentially using central thermal imagery where you can see heat. That's an example of sensors. We have 3 to 5 different types of sensors at once. Right now we have 5. Sometimes it fluctuates based on data bandwidth and constraints, but I'll break down sensors in as simple a format as possible. So optical sensors can see RGB, red, green, blue, which is the same thing that our eyes can see. So the human eye can see those 3 sensors. There's all these wavelengths of colors and lights that we can't see. Some animals, like frogs, can see different things that we can't see because they have eyes that can see essentially more color bands. So the RGB is 3 color bands. When you add one more color band, which is called near infrared, that's the 4th band that most of our optical images actually have. Then you can see the things like the vegetation, the water index, the fire. So just by adding one more band, we can see a lot more information. The computer sees it and that digests it into a way that we can see it. So the computer essentially translates that 4th band into an RGB, which is why we see the red and green. And then it helps us understand what's going on in the image. So that's what happens when we add one more image, or excuse me, one more band of light. Multispectral is another thing we have, which has 8 bands. Multispectral can help you see literally like where plants are growing and where they're not growing. So it's a little bit deeper than vegetation because you can see what's healthy, what's not healthy, where there's pesticides, etc. And then hyperspectral is my new favorite. It's very, very high tech. It's coming it's being launched early or later this year in October by a group named Pixel. Pixel. Hyperspectral has 128 bands. So
Wow.
Optical can see 3. With 4 bands, we can see a lot more information. With 128 bands, we can see any element on Earth. It's very insane. It's crazy. So I'll give you some of my favorite examples. But essentially, everything on Earth, every material has a spectral signature. So like the shirt that you're wearing right now has a spectral signature. Plastic has a spectral signature, etc. By creating a library of those spectral signatures, let me actually back up. The spectral signature is a line of code. So it's a bunch of numbers. And I've seen the pages, it's like 20 pages of numbers sometimes. It's extremely long, but that's the code, that's the signature. So we have a library of codes, and we're going to be able to see when this launches in 2024, in late 2024, we're going to be able to detect meth labs in LA because we have the spectral signature of meth. And then we just take a satellite image and we look for all the anomalies that have that spectral signature in the hyperspectral image. And now we see a black and white image of where all of the meth labs are in LA. We'll sell that to police departments, etc. We're also going to be able to do that with plastic. We can see plastic in the ocean, more or less, or on riverbeds by just looking for that spectral signature. When I get into the demo here in a second, I'll show you some of the mining use cases for hyperspectral, but we're able to take giant swaths of land, like huge swaths. I'm talking like 250 miles of land, and we can identify all of the lithium in the image. And then we can go tell miners or EV companies or computer chip companies like NVIDIA, hey, here's where all the lithium is on this land patch, go get it. So it's going to be game changing when we add 128 bands to the spectral signatures. So synthetic aperture radar is not a band. Well, they actually are using a band, but it's not a color spectrum, it's radar. So it's a little bit different. Does that answer your question, Kai?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Cool. I'm going to dive into the platform. So let me actually go to skyfi.com so you can see how to get here. Let me just open up a new. So if you go to skyfi.com, it'll take you to this pretty thing right here. And you can either click get data or get analytics. Either way, it'll take you into the platform. So I'm just going to click get data for now. All right, this is what our platform looks like on the web app. It's actually it's a website, not a web app. We do have a mobile app. So if you have an Android or iOS, you can go into your app store, type in SkyFi, download the app, which I'd love for you to do. And then you can task a satellite, get archive imagery, open data, all from your web app, or excuse me, all from your mobile app. This is the web app though. So this image that you're looking at here is actually Google Maps. So I don't want you to get confused that this is one of our satellite images. This is the same thing you would open if you opened up Maps on your phone and you're looking at that. It's called a base map or base layer. This is how we help people understand what they're looking at. On the left side here, we have the sensors. So we have daytime, which is the optical sensor. We have SAR, synthetic aperture radar. So you can literally just click on that. It'll change the circle size. It changes from a square to a circle because this actually captures images from different angles. And so it doesn't always deliver a square. Sometimes it delivers like a rhomboid. And so a better way to kind of understand it is through a circle. And then we also have stereo. We haven't talked about stereo yet, but stereo is an optical image, so RGB, the 3 bands, but it takes multiple images as it passes over Earth, and it takes it from different angles. And if you put that into some machine learning algorithms or computer vision algorithms, you can actually create a CAD file, a 3D file, by taking 3 images over the same location, because you have so many different angles, and it can help you understand what buildings actually look like, and it can create digital surface models, digital elevation models, etc. So that's another type of imagery we have. If you go here, I'm going back to daytime, which is optical. We have different resolutions that you can select. So super high, I'm going to show you what these look like in a second. very high, high, and medium. Down here, you can select your date and time that you want to capture. And then I'm just going to show you what this looks like. Right now, this says, let me go back to high. Our cheapest image is $200 for tasking, that is. And if you see here, as I grab this box and make it bigger, the price changes right away. So that's what we call dynamic pricing. And it allows you to understand how much you're going to pay for your image right away. So you can do some budgeting and figure it out. We also have this shape tool right here, draw a custom shape. So let's say I wanted to look at Lady Bird Lake in the Colorado River. So I don't need that big square. I just want that. I can take this tool and draw a shape. This allows me to be a lot more custom with what I'm paying for. And then, oh, it's going to tell me that I need to have 25 square kilometers because that's our minimum size that you can task. So I'm just going to drag this a little bigger. Now you can see the price adjusts. So that's another thing on the tasking side of our product. If I wanted to buy this image, all I have to do is add it to my cart. I can continue exploring if I want to get more images, or I can go right to checkout. It's going to take me here. I click checkout, and that's going to task the satellite. Now, typically, I'm going to receive that satellite within 3 to 14 days, depending on the weather. I'm going to receive that image. And so once it's captured, like once the image is actually taken, you're going to have it in your email and on your profile in My Orders. So it'll be delivered via email and in My Orders within 24 hours. So we're very fast with the turnaround time to actually be able to see the image. So that's new images. That's where we just were right here. Now I'm going to go to existing images. All right, I'm going to go to a different location just for fun. I'm going to my areas, by the way, here, which are areas that I have saved. And let's go to, I don't know, let's go to Alberta. There was a fire in this region recently, so I had this saved because I've been monitoring this area and I've been getting more images of this area. So now that I have this area selected, I can either go to this tab, existing images, or I can click here. And that's going to take me to the archive. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, so these orange swaths here, these are the images that were captured by the satellite. And I want to make sure that I'm getting the swath that I want. Now on existing images, I can actually bring my box down to 5 square kilometers. So it's a lot cheaper. So let me just do that real quick. All right, so now let's say I want this image right here. I'd click on this. And now I can buy this image for $25. This is showing me a low resolution preview of the image. The reason we're giving you that is because there's a lot of clouds sometimes in the image. So if we just showed you the high resolution, you could just screenshot it. There'd be no reason for you to buy it. So we can't do that. But this image has no clouds. Let me show you one that does. Yeah, so you can see here, there's like some swells of clouds. Let me go to a different region. Let me get a bigger AOI, area of interest. Give me a second. Here's an example of what clouds look like. Okay, so if I was buying this image or an area over this image, I would want to make sure that the area of interest I have is not over any of these cloudy areas or in the area of the shadow of the cloud. So that's why we're giving this low res preview. And you just drag your box over what you want. Let's go over here. And you check out. Same thing, I add to my cart. Check out. And I'm going to show you something here. This is the information about the image. So this is a 50 centimeter resolution image. It was taken on November 17, 2023, 11:07 local time to the image. It's going to be delivered within 48 hours. Because this is in our archive, you're probably going to get it within 3 hours normally. I ordered an image today. I got it in 9 minutes. So it varies. We just have to kind of cover our butt and say 48 hours, within 48 hours. It's going to show you the angle that it was taken at, what you're going to receive, which is a PNG and a GeoTIFF, and then the minimum size that you can order. It'll also tell you your provider. So Seaway is one of our Chinese providers, but I'll show you how else you can see this. So when you're in this preview, you can see your resolution here, 30 centimeters, 50 centimeters, etc. You can see your date, and you can see obviously where the image was taken. Up here, we have our planet data, which is Planet Scope. Planet Scope captures images every single day. So this image right here, it takes 1 day to ingest, actually. So this is August 13th. So August 14th hasn't ingested yet. There's a chance that August 15th hasn't captured. But I can click on this. It's a lot lower resolution, but I can literally get an image for a very cheap. Let's see how cheap we can go. I think it's $15 is the cheapest. Yeah, 13. I think it's $12.50 actually is the cheapest for this resolution. I want to go into resolutions really quickly and show you what those mean. So if I click see sample, sorry, let me show you how to do this. If I click see sample images right here, it's going to take me to the sample tab where I can see the different sensors, and then I can also see the resolutions. So of course, we like Austin, Texas. I typically use the stadium as my measurement. So you can see in this image, it's not very high resolution. If I wanted to view it on the map here, let me show you this. Sorry, let me try to zoom in. All right, this is, sorry, give me 1 second. I might have just run into a bug. All right, you can also download it. I'm not gonna download it, but this is a good example. So see, you can barely see the words on the stadium. Now I'm gonna go high resolution. Okay, now you can start to make out the words. You can see cars on the highway, moody. Now I'm gonna go to very high, which is 50 centimeters. Different area in Austin, but I can see almost the letters here. Super high. All right, now we can see a lot here, right? Very clear stadium picture. Which, by the way, I'm not sure if we have any UT fans here, but we're going to be capturing satellite images of the games this year that'll look similar to this, and this will be full of people. Ultra high. So this is the highest resolution we have. Let me see if I can zoom in on this guy. I don't know why it's starting this far out. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is a bug. I got to report this to my team. We are a startup, so I will lean into the fact that we still have bug issues every now and then. But this is, I guess, the best thing you're going to get here. So this is highest resolution image we have. I'll show you synthetic aperture radar. This is what SAR would look like. So if you don't know what you're doing with SAR, we have analytics to help you. So I'll show you that in a sec. But this is what it looks like. It's very choppy. The main thing you need to know about synthetic aperture radar is that metal reflects faster than other things. So all of these like bright areas are metal. And I'll give you a quick story on that. Last year in 2023, in early 2023, there was a hiker on Mount Everest that got lost. And his family in search and rescue reached out to us and said, can you help us find him? And we reached out to Umbra, which is the synthetic aperture radar company, and we said, can you help us find them? And what they were able to do is we were able to capture images like this. I'll try to find them and send them in a later email. And we were able to see his tin cans on the mountain because it's snow, which doesn't bounce as fast as tin. And we were actually able to identify where the person was. Unfortunately, it was too late and he had passed away. But it shows the power of this stuff when you know what you're looking for. Very interesting use case there. And then lastly, we have multispectral. This is 8 bands. We don't show the bands here. If you want to see the bands, you have to download the image and ingest it into a platform where you can manipulate the bands. An example of that would be QGIS or ArcGIS. Those are 2 geospatial tools that could help you. Any questions so far? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah.
Donald?
So what area is this? In Middle East?
Yeah, this is in India, and a group that we're working with,
Okay.
they were interested in this park. I think it was of sentimental value to this person.
Okay.
So we were going to get them an image kind of as a way to close the deal. And he said he was born and grew up in this neighborhood. So just India here. Something that I'm looking at a lot of these days, let me see if I can pull one up. Yes, is the South China Sea. So let me zoom out here.
Cloud.
Yeah, I mean, this is Google Maps, so we're actually not looking at what we actually are gathering, but South China Sea, I'm not sure if anyone follows geopolitical stuff going on in China, but this is a cluster of islands. I'm going to zoom out a lot so you can see where this is. Okay, so this is a zone that is under attack right now by China. Philippines actually owns these clusters of islands, according to international law, but China is slowly creeping in, and they are starting to establish bases on some of these clusters of islands. And it's the reason it's meaningful is it shows they're trying to take more land than just Taiwan. And if they have a military outbreak episode with the Philippines, the US might have to get involved. So I was just watching this 2 days ago. I'll pull up the image. It's never seen before image, so I'll be happy to share it. But it actually shows a Chinese carrier next to a Philippines carrier. It's the closest they've ever gotten, and we're the first group to get the image. So it's a very big deal. It's going to actually be on 60 Minutes on the 21st of August. So we're very proud of that. But it's breaking news essentially that China is this close to a conflict with the Philippines. So we're watching a lot of different things in the world, and we're giving this information, and different groups are buying this information, and we're helping tell stories that might actually impact geopolitical scenarios. So it's a very fun job for me, in my opinion. Now I'm going to dive into analytics, which is the second part of our process. I'll start with this vessel detection. So if I click on this, I can see it's $750 for this analysis, which does seem expensive, but the companies that are using this have massive budgets, $1 million budgets. If I go to view sample highlights and I scroll down here, I can show you what this analytic capability provides for you. Okay, this is the synthetic aperture radar image that you would see. And you can tell that if you know anything about synthetic aperture radar, you would be able to tell that there's water because it's such a high contrast. This area is all water because it's all dark. And then these things are something metal. You can obviously take logic and say, okay, these are ships. But what are they and what are they doing? That's what this helps you understand. So when you apply this analytic to this capability, which is what this would look like. Give me a sec. Shoot. This analytic capability is going to be able to tell you what are these things. They're all ships. And then what do they hold? So these are container ships. These green ones here are oil tankers. These yellow ones, we don't know what they are. But if we did another analysis, we could probably figure it out. So this is used by oil and gas traders who are monitoring ports, let's say Houston. They would use this imagery and they would look at oil tankers that are coming in and going out, and they would be able to use that as a layer of data into their models that they're creating to predict market movement. One example. Remember I was talking about hyperspectral 128 bands? This is what one of those images looks like when you take it. So it's crazy colorful. And you're able to tell the bands to represent different colors. So in this example, the dark blue bands represent lithium. And that's essentially what this is a report that you would give to a miner or a company looking to get into mining. And you'd say, hey, this is all the lithium you need. These pink ones are signal minerals. So they signal that underneath this, there could be lithium. I forget exactly what signature you're looking at here, but essentially I know this, copper is typically near gold. So if you can't find any gold, but you find a lot of copper, that's a signal that there's a lot of gold. So there's a lot of different things you'd look at when you're not actually you're not looking for one mineral, you're looking for another one, and that one signals to something else. I'll show you this one as well. I showed you this one in the mining example, but this is what a land use classification looks like. Okay, in this image, I'm gonna give you the spoiler. A bunch of buildings were built between the two images. So this dark red here, I'll show you the legend in a sec. That means building. So this is the before image, vector, and then this is the after. All those dark reds are buildings. And then you can also see that they actually grew. I'm sorry, I'm mistelling the story. This was a wildfire that destroyed these buildings. So this is actually the before image, and then this is the after image. And you can also see all this in this region right here, all of this green, which is signaling vegetation, died out. So it's just showing exactly what the fire destroyed, which is extremely interesting. This legend here tells me what these colors mean. So we have water channels, variable water, persistent water. Those mean different things to different people. Dense trees, sparse trees, crops, high density buildings, rangeland, etc. And then down here, it quantifies the change. So after the fire, high density building was down 86%. Variable water, I'm not sure exactly what that means, to be honest, was down. Sparse trees was up for whatever reason, dense trees down, etc. I'm going to show a couple more. I'll go quickly to this. Here's another way you can visualize the lithium. So because we have control over these bands, we can create anomalies in the image. So in this one, we're saying that we want the lithium to be an anomaly in red, and we want everything else to be black and white. And so this would tell us that here's where the lithium is in these images. This costs $3,000, which is super expensive. But if you think about sending someone to the ground in a remote location, that includes plane travel, insurance for that individual, maybe a security team, cars on the ground, etc. Those build up. So it's actually fairly reasonable. Vegetation. This is one of our cheapest analytics, $5. This is the one that shows where vegetation is. All this red is a water. So this is actually in Michigan. This is Lake Michigan on the right. This is another lake on the left. There's some water in here. And if you're a farmer or agriculture, you can actually see where your land needs to be watered. I'm going to scroll down. Here's the fire one that shows you the fires. Here's the water one that shows you where the water is versus the buildings. We do a lot of custom work. So if you know what your question is, but we don't have the answer, you can buy into one of these and we'll assign a custom geospatial expert and they'll help you figure out what's going on. We also sell annotated data sets. So if you have your own machine learning model and you just want a pre-trained data set, we'll sell you those data sets. These are on naval like ships, essentially, aircrafts, so like F-16s, etc. Infrastructure on an airbase, and then this one is surface-to-air missiles. So these are already trained. You would essentially buy this package, $90,000, and you don't need to train a model. we already gave you all the information. Change detection, another interesting one. So you feed this 2 satellite images of the same location, it'll tell you what has changed in every pixel. And so this could be used for agriculture, construction, disaster management. One that I recently used it for was after an earthquake in Turkey. I don't know if you all remember that. About 15 months ago, there was an earthquake in Turkey that destroyed many buildings. We took 2 satellite images. We actually already had an existing image, so we just went to the archive and grabbed that one. Then we tasked an image directly after the earthquake, and then we were able to tell emergency response crews what buildings were destroyed so that they could go and help figure out where to prioritize their resources. These are used for a variety of things, but we can essentially tell you where there's flood risk problems in your agriculture land. So this actually uses synthetic aperture radar. One cool thing about synthetic aperture radar is if the ground is moist, it can actually ping. It will actually the radar will soak 8 feet into the ground. And so you can actually see inside the ground that we can't see with the human eye because the radar penetrates the ground, and we can tell you where you might have flooding issues if there's some type of weather. Some other examples of hyperspectral: boron, another thing you can see, ammonia, another mineral that people care about. We provide water availability reports, so that would just tell you where there's water, clean water versus salt water, drinking water, etc. Some of my most recent favorite ones are these sports court detectors, pool counter. So this is an interesting one. Okay, it's not gonna let me show you a different. These are all of the analytics that I've purchased, so I'll show you a couple. This one is over Italy. All of those purple dots are cars. So this is the image I captured. I applied the analytics, and then it looked like this. And it can tell me that there's 7,334 cars. We're 98% certain of that. We miss some cars sometimes if there's shadows or other things. Now, 1 image, cool. 10 images over time, very cool, because now we're starting to generate a graph, right? We have 10 numbers with change over time, and I can show you a line graph of how that's changed. I'm going to go back to my analytics, show you some other ones. I gotta find this one of LA. I love this one. Okay, because I came from a sales role and I'm interested in marketing, I'm very interested in how geospatial data can be used for sales teams. One way is by let's say you're a pool manufacturer, pool salesman, solar salesman, we can also count solar panels, etc. This is the image that you capture. When you apply this $5 analytic to it, you can now see every single pool. And what's cool about this is if you're in door-to-door sales, let's say you're in door-to-door pool sales, instead of going door to door, you can literally order one of these analyses, zoom in on the image, see what houses have pools. Let's say you're a pool maintenance company, you work on fixing pools. Now you know every pool in LA in this image that exists in a neighborhood, or this is what's cool. What I like about this image is this left side, this left vertical is residential, and then this is commercial. So you can see like there's so many more pools in the residential area. But if you're a pool salesman, I call this your cheat sheet, because now you know every single pool that might need assistance. So it's a cheat sheet to learning where you need to go. We can do that for solar panels, cars, and sport courts and pools right now. We're adding more as we go. I'm going to show another Austin, Texas, one that I'm a fan of. We also have plane detection, so you can count planes. Building detection, I should probably show you that one. I'm going to open this in a new tab. Okay. I'm not sure if anyone knows what this is or where it is, but it's outside of Austin, Texas. They call it the biggest logo from space. I think it's cool because it shows the value of vegetation. So this is the before image. This is after the analysis. So all of this red area is all dry land. And like this obviously spells out Lukey, which is the family name of the company that owns this land. But you can even tell like inside some of the lettering, they need to water it. And it'd be helpful for them to understand where they are overwatering it, where it's super green, and where they're underwatering it. And they could fix their irrigation based on this data. This whole thing cost me $5. This is an open data image, which I still need to show you how to get. And then it's the analysis applied to that. So that's one more I'll show you. And then I'm going to show you building detection. I'll show you open data and we'll be done here. So actually, I got to show you the South China Sea stuff. It's very cool. All right, with this building detection, I can see this is in Los Angeles. This is what I bought. This happens when I apply the analytics. It's telling me that there's 5,320 buildings. The area size of my image is 5.3 square kilometers. The density of buildings in the image is 29%, and the average building size is 289 meters squared. So what I like about this is, again, one image is kind of valuable. It's interesting. Two images, imagine this in like 2015 versus 2024. And I can literally tell you how many buildings have been built in the past 9 years if I have literally just these two numbers. So it's very interesting when you show change over time with the analytics. Now I'm going to jump into open data really quickly so you know how to get that. Open data is the best way to start exploring on SkyFi. So you come to existing images, this tab, you have commercial, which we've looked at already. Let me just go to an area real quick. We'll go to Scottsdale. I was looking at Scottsdale earlier today because I was trying to look at some solar panels in Scottsdale to help a client understand where there are solar and where there needs to be solar. But let's just grab this. I'm going to make this massive. Okay. Zoom out even more. Okay, this is all commercial. You can buy this. If you switch this open tab right here, now it's all free. These images are massive. Like I'll zoom out even more. This is the full image. I recommend if you're gonna come on SkyFi and explore for free, drag your box over this whole image and download the whole image. It's free, so you might as well just do that. You can go outside the image like this. And just add that to your cart and check out. And it's a great way to understand the value of this type of imagery. Not only that, it's absolutely beautiful as well. It's very pretty. So in our open data, we have 3 different types of data groups. If you go to this filter right here, you can filter by Sentinel-2, which is the low res one that we just looked at. Satellogic, which is 99 centimeter data. Let me show you that real quick. So if I apply these filters and I zoom out, right, these numbers here mean that there's data there. And actually, there should be more data. I need to talk to my team about that. But here's 99 centimeters, so 1 meter essentially per pixel. So it's pretty high resolution. Free data. You can literally check this whole thing out, add it to your cart, check it out to see what it looks like. Lastly, in the open data, Umbra, our synthetic aperture radar provider, has made $4 million worth of data free on SkyFi. So again, I'll zoom out here. It's going to be a lot more clusters. So all of these regions have free data. I'll click on one. I just want to show you what the world looks like. So they provided, I mean, there's 72 image. If I click on that 72, it's going to take me to a zoomed in version. If I click on 4, then it's going to take me to this region. And these are all different areas. I'll just click on one of these. Now this is all free data. I mean, there should be actually more. But anyway, this image right here is free. You can check that out, download it for free, and see what this synthetic aperture radar looks like for free if you'd like to see different regions. Okay, last thing I'm going to show you here. I'll go to my orders because I've ordered a lot. And I want to show you a couple. We have this new thing that I like a lot. Let me go to an image that would be meaningful. I can preview this image on the map. So remember I was telling you we're looking at these clusters of images in the South China Sea. This is what they look like. This one actually had no boats in it, which means something to us. This one here, another one. Again, no boats. I'm going to show you one that does have boats. So I think this is the one. I'm going to find it. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right, so this is going on 60 minutes. If any of you watch 60 minutes, I would love for you to watch this segment because this is a never seen before image, so it's very cool. I'm zooming in here. It needs to adjust, so the resolution will adjust in a second. Okay, that is a Chinese naval ship. And above it, very close to it, is a smaller ship. I need to find it. You know what? I don't think this is right. One sec. Sorry, I'm not the expert on this, so I'm gonna find. Let me see if it's a different image. Maybe it's this one. It's really exciting when you get these images because you have to look and you have to zoom in like I'm doing right now and see where the ships are that you're looking for. Because we know they're around here, we just don't know where they are in the image. Do believe. Okay, I believe it might have been the first one I showed you. Sorry, I'm not the expert here. But oh, actually, is that a ship right there? Oh, this might be it. Yeah, okay, this is it. Excuse me. It's gonna take a sec to adjust. I'll drag over here. Okay, that looks more like a naval ship. So again, the resolution is not amazing, but this is a Chinese naval ship in Filipino water, in the Philippines water, threatening them, which is very, and the real value of this image, or the real interesting part, is that this right over here, let me find it. That is a Filipino naval ship. So they're starting to get really close to contact. And this could mean a lot of different things. It could mean the US is going to get involved. It could mean that China is just kind of trying to intimidate them. There's a lot of stuff going on in this image, but the value of it is that we're literally able to capture this. I'm living in Austin, Texas. I don't know anything about what's going on in China besides these images we're getting, and we're able to tell the story to a much larger crowd. So the power of this platform has been amazing to me over the years to watch. This is really all I have here. I'm happy to continue to show things if anyone has any questions, but I appreciate your time.
I have a question. Earlier you saw a title called Dam Reliability Application. You see when the dam may get broken or cracked. Is that how you detect it?
Yeah, I'll show you that.
EAM.
By the way, if you go to app.skyfi.com, you can see this without giving us your email or anything. So yeah, I think your question is about this one. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the synthetic aperture radar is able to see into the ground because of how powerful the radar signals are. And it can literally tell you if a dam is close to collapsing or where there's vulnerabilities in the dam. And so for $275 per kilometer, which you might only need like a 3 or 4 square kilometer depending on how big the dam is. You can if you're like a construction worker, I'm not really sure exactly what the person that would care about the dam is, probably a civil engineer. Then you can now get this report and it'll tell you all the vulnerabilities in your dam.
So normally dam kind of have a big layer of concrete.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So are you detecting any leakage or potential? You look at the soil condition behind the concrete, or
And so it is seeing through the concrete, but there's a lot of science that goes into it, and I'm not honestly as savvy as I wish I was on how it works.
okay.
But I will tell you that the satellite takes a picture at an angle. So it doesn't take the picture directly on, and by taking it at an angle, it's able to penetrate different materials differently. So for the concrete, which is obviously a lot different than like loose soil, it's able to penetrate by passing over the location, and then the satellite looks back at the location after it's already passed over it and shoots the signals from a side.
Yeah, probably it's a sign by itself.
Yeah, it's extremely impressive.
Yeah. So
Hey,
other
Tom.
question. All your customer, commercial customer, right?
Yeah.
So will it benefits for the travel industry in case there's some group traveling to a new country with the imaging technology? Can they show them where they're going? Or
Yes, absolutely. So to answer that question, when we first launched our product, we thought that we were going to be a product for everyone. By everyone, we literally meant like someone's grandma to a 13-year-old to a wedding day, capturing your wedding day from space could be of sentimental value. What we quickly learned is that expectations for resolution are screwed up because of Google Maps. People think they're going to be able to get the amazing picture that they can't actually get. So a lot of the use cases are actually business related, and a lot of the budgets are a lot bigger than just a personal budget. With that said, on the travel, for example, let's say you're going to a remote region that isn't well documented. SkyFi could be a really good use case for that because you can now see, let's say you're going on a fishing trip. You can now see the pods of water of where you might want to go fishing in the middle of Brazil or the middle of Costa Rica, etc. So it's the use cases are less on the pretty picture side and more on utility around something that's going on in that region, especially if it's remote. One other thing I'll say is we are actually working with the government as well. So we have a relationship with NATO, Space Force, and then DIU, which is I think it's a Defense Innovation Unit, which is a US squad. And we're working with them for variety of use cases. Primarily, it's around our user experience and how easy we've made it to capture these things and then get it delivered. Because we're one of the few companies that will actually deliver a satellite to your phone, or like a TAK unit, which is what a lot of military people use on the ground.
All right, great.
Phil.
Yeah, hey Tom, Phil Batista. So great presentation, great technology. Can you put your email address in the chat? I'd like to contact you offline.
Absolutely. And one thing I'll mention real quick, I did mention that we are self-serving, so you can go to app.skyfi.com. You can navigate for yourself. You don't have to give us an email until you want to check out. So it's completely free to see everything we have available, which is game changing for the industry. Everyone else, all of our competitors, they're hiding all of their pricing behind either a paywall, so you have to pay to see the pricing, or behind a sales team. So we're different in that way. But what I was going to say with that, Phil, is that we also are happy to provide like human support. So if you want a team, a sales team, or an expert to kind of talk you through what we have available in your use case, we can also do that very easily.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Is there any other questions? Or Louis, have you come take a picture of the attendees? Louis?
Yeah, yes, I have.
Okay, great. So that's a great talk. Learned quite a lot.
Yeah, thank you. And one other thing I'll say really quickly, just closing this out. By the way, I sent my email in the chat. Feel free to just hit me up right now. I'll get back to you tomorrow. We're very active on social media, primarily LinkedIn. So I'd be happy to connect with you on social media, or you can follow SkyFi. And I post on my personal account quite a bit about SkyFi, and we post almost every day on the SkyFi account about different use cases, what you're able to do, inspirational stuff. The biggest barrier for us right now is customer education. So it's literally just trying to convince the person that has a different solution that our solution is cheaper, better, faster, etc. So that's one of the reasons why I was really excited to jump on this call and talk, this group through it. Is just seeing it and understanding it makes a big difference. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. So I think half the group are retirees, the live members. So my personal interest is in traveling. So probably in Spano, your tool can help me to understand the new location that I'm trying to visit, or you have some new idea, then I'd like to hear them.
Absolutely. And Kai, I'll tell you one thing. Like if I were you and I was in travel, I would go to the open data, like I showed you. I would draw a box as big as the image, and I would get an image and I would use that for a PowerPoint or a piece of marketing collateral, because it's literally an image of the location that you're probably going to be marketing about or talking about. And it could be like 3 to 5 days old, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So it's just a cool marketing material. Phil, to answer your question about FBI, so our head of strategy came from InQtel, which is the VC arm for the CIA. We don't have a ton of relationships with the FBI. As I did mention, we're going to be able to start spotting things that local law enforcement want to see, like meth labs, heroin. We can look at the border and we can see drugs coming that are visible on the ground across the border. We can see a lot of things on the border. It's obviously a sensitive subject, but for law enforcement, that's very valuable. So I'd love to talk about anything that you have with partnerships or customers, etc.
Great, thanks, Tom.
Well, I know we're a little bit over time here. I'm wondering if we have any other questions. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I see a lot of potential, like the border protection. You can see all get some data from the border,
Yes, Luis?
Yeah, Luis, you have something to say?
Sorry, no, I was just clearing my throat.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just now reading the chat. Oh,
Okay.
okay, so I do see something about producing. Hold up. Let me read this about the producing its own content. because we have talked about this. Okay, yeah, Netflix. Okay, I'm sorry. You're just quoting GPT, but I will say, Phil, we have got a question a lot is, would we be willing to send satellites to space? Because one thing I didn't touch on, I should have, is because SpaceX has been able to reuse the rockets as of late, the cost to go to space is so much cheaper than it used to be. And an example is the first satellite ever put in space by a group called the Hexagon out of the government cost $2 billion to get to space. Now you can get up there for $750,000 because of SpaceX on a ride sharing program. So because of that, we've thought about creating quote unquote Netflix originals, SkyFi originals, which would be launching our own constellation. The reason we haven't done it yet is because it would cannibalize our partnerships. Our core value prop to the partners is that we're going to unlock a new market and we're not going to compete against them. We're going to essentially educate the customers, bring them new customers, fill their capacity. So we've looked into it, but right now, the only thing that we're dipping our toes into on SkyFi Originals is machine learning models. We're building our own to make it cheaper for people to create analysis.
Sounds
So
great.
I know we're way over time. I could talk forever. So Kai, tell me when we're done.
Okay. Yeah, there's a comment from Stephen Anthony. In the chat room, we say variable water is contrast to persistent water.
Sorry, let me read.
So he can't explain what it is. Can you add something to that?
Honestly, I think it seems like Anthony or Stephen Anthony knows more about this than me.
Yes. Yeah, basically, your radar system can penetrate to what, 8 feet underground?
Yeah, so you can see water underground with it. I don't know all the details, but there's different types of SAR, synthetic aperture radar. There's one that's called L-band,
Yeah.
and L-band can see into the ground, and it can tell you where there's fresh water pits under the ground.
Yes. So,
all right, thank you all.
Yeah, any more questions? If not, thank Tom. It's a great lecture to us about your technology. So we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. And I will plug this right now because if this group cares anything about this, I'm also speaking tomorrow at a UAP, UFO, essentially, conference online. So I can send out a link to that as well. But that will be more about looking at anomalies in images.
Yeah. Can you send me your presentation in a PDF file?
Yes, absolutely.
Post in the website, so they'll expose your comment to the others, people who did not attend today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, all.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, thank you, everybody. And next month, we will have a meeting on more technology topic as a USB-C. And in October, we have a speaker talk about what our contribution, the EE field contribute to World War II, how we have to win the war. And in November, we will speaker talk about Indonesia, a country that's in Asia, the number 4 country in population. All right, so see you guys next month, and enjoy the heat in Austin. We're kind of inside the house. I think outside maybe 100 degrees. All right, thank you again, everybody.